All right, we're going to talk about adding, subtracting, and multiplying of decimals. It really is a combination of FAs. If you look at NBT 7C, NBT 7A. I'm not too worried about the adding or subtracting of decimals because you're not going to have to draw pictures or shade in any grids there. The only thing you really need to remember is to line up decimals, which we'll talk about that a little bit later on here. But I'm going to start off with the multiplication of decimals. All right. And here's the example we have. We have 0.4 or 4/10 times 0.6 or 6/10. So you have 0.4 times 0.6. Now, we obviously talked a little bit further in math about multiplying of decimals and how we look at the factors here. We look at the 0.4 times 0.6, and we look at, okay, 6 times 4 is 24. Where do I place my decimal? Well, I know if there's one place value to the right of the decimal there's one place value to the right of the decimal here. 1 plus 1 equals 2. So I need 2 place values to the right of the decimal in my answer. And we practiced that already, and you guys did a really good job with that. So I'm not worried about that. But on the on the common assessment, you are going to have to multiply decimals using the shading technique that we talked in class. So I'm going to give a couple demonstrations here. And once again, I think this is pretty easy. So here we have 4/10 and 6/10. So if I want to shade in 4/10, okay, I'm going to shade in 4/10 on the smartboard here. Okay, and as you can see, I went vertically vertically up and down. Okay, and that's 4/10 shaded in. Next, I want to shade in 6/10, but I have to go the opposite direction when I'm multiplying decimals here. So I want to shade in 6/10, and I want to go, so that's 6/10 right there. Okay. And as you can see, I went the opposite direction. I went horizontally here. So I have vertically 4/10, which is right here. Horizontally, 6/10, which is right there. Now remember, the answer to this problem, okay, when we did this in class, is the overlap here. Make sure I get this correct. Okay, this is my overlap right here. This section right in here that I've outlined in green. And if you count the squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24, the answer to this question is 24, and this is a hundredths chart. So it's 24 hundredths are shaded in. And that's what we learned in class before we learned to count the place values. Okay, you will have a question very similar to this on the common assessment. So make sure you look at that. So if we look at this again, we have 5/10 times 7/10. I'm going to pause here and give you a couple of seconds to figure out what that would be shading in, and then I'll get back and show you. So I'm going to pause it right now. All right, so now we're back here for the 5/10 and the 7/10. Hopefully you paused the playback here. So once again, I'm going to shade in, and I'm going to go shade in right here. This is going to be my 5/10. And I'm going vertically again. I could have went horizontally. It didn't matter. So there's my vertically 5/10. I want to shade in horizontally 7/10. So I'm going to go, okay, all this right in here is my horizontally shaded in 7/10. Now, the answer to this question is my overlap. So I want to look at my overlap. So look at the blue marker right here. This is my overlap right here. Okay. And if I counted every one of those individual squares, I would get 35 squares. And this is a hundredths chart, so it is 35 hundredths. So you will have to show this on the common assessment. You will have a problem to where you're going to have to show shading in like the 5/10, shading in the 7/10, and making sure that you know that the answer is 35 hundredths. And you can always check it using the way we learned in class. 5/10 times 7/10. 7 times 5 is 35. Okay, now you ask yourself, where do you put your place value? Well, I have one place value to the right of the decimal here. I have another place value to the right of the decimal here. So I need 1, 2 over here. Boom, my decimal goes right there. And that's multiplication of decimals. All right, we'll take a short pause here, and then we're going to get into the adding of decimals. All right, now if you get to the adding of decimals, which is actually NBT 7, which this is the video for NBT 7 because I'm really not going to show that because this is pretty simple. It says I can multiply decimals to the hundredths. That's for multiplication. The adding one is NBT 7A, excuse me. It says I can add and subtract decimals to the hundredths and write an explanation of the reasoning, which basically when we add or subtract decimals, the only thing we want to remember is line the decimals up. So I have 6 and 47 hundredths plus 9 and 4/10, okay? I want to line these decimals up in the problem. So I have 6 and 47 hundredths, 9 and 4/10. See how I line my decimals up? And I want to add these. I'm going to put a place value 0 here just because I like things always nice and tidy here. Then I just add. 7 plus 0 is 7. 4 plus 4 is 8. Bring my decimal straight down. 9 plus 6 is 15. I have 15 and 87 hundredths. Once again, 15 and 87 hundredths. The thing you really need to remember with adding or subtracting decimals, and the kids are really good with this, is you line the decimals up. Once again, line the decimals up. All right? So the next thing to remember is when you're adding or subtracting, 8 minus 4 and 3/10. Every single number has a what? Hopefully everybody answered that correctly. Once again, every single number has a decimal. We just get lazy over the years and we don't put the decimal down. So like this is 8. It's actually 8 and 0/10 minus 4 and 3/10. Okay. Just like when people ask, we talked about in class, how old you are. You say you're 9, you say you're 10, you say you're 11. You don't say you're 11 and 0/10 or 9 and 0/10. We just get lazy over the years. But every whole number, okay, every whole number has a decimal. And you need to remember that. Okay, remember, these are whole numbers, okay, because they don't have any decimals whatsoever as far as decimal parts associated with them, so they're called whole numbers. All right, so same thing here to line this up. I have 8 decimal point 0, 4 decimal point 3. So I have 8 and 0/10 minus 4 and 3/10. I have to borrow here. So I mark off the 8. I'm going to borrow one whole, and in this case, it's 10/10. So I have 10 minus 3 is 7/10, and 7 wholes minus 4 wholes is 3 wholes. So my answer is 3 and 7/10. Once again, 3 and 7/10. So this video covers really the multiplication of decimals and the adding of decimals. The adding of decimals, you really just need to remember to line up the place values. Subtracting of decimals, line up the place values, and remember every single number has a decimal. Please remember that. That's where a lot of mistakes are made by kids. When you multiply decimals, there's two things we're going to talk about. The first thing we talked about already is the shading in. You're going to shade in vertically, then you're going to shade in horizontally. We'll go back to that quickly. Okay, right here, you're going to shade in horizontally, you're going to shade in vertically, and the overlap that has both colors, the overlap is 24 hundredths in this picture here. 24 hundredths. Now we're going to talk about what we talked about today as far as where we put the decimal. And I'll only show one problem of this kind because there aren't really many problems on the Common Assessment about this. So let me set the problem up here. I'm going to pause the tape here a second. All right, so here's what we have. I have 6 and 39 hundredths times 1 and 4/10. 6 and 39 hundredths times 1 and 4/10. Now remember, you do not line the decimals up when you multiply. You do not line the decimals up when you multiply. We just kind of line up digits. Okay, so we're going to show this. 4 times 9 is 36, carry my 3. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 3 is 15, carry my 1. 4 times 6 is 24, plus 1 is 25. All right, then since I'm starting from this digit, I kind of go straight down, and that's where my first answer would go. And don't forget my place value 0 there. 1 times 9 is 9. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 6 is 6. All right, I look at this and I have 6. 9 plus 5 is 14. Carry my 1. 5 plus 3 is 8. Plus 1 is 9. 6 plus 2 is 8. Now, where does my decimal go? All right, so remember what we learned in class. I count my place values after the decimal here, my place values after the decimal here, or to the right of the decimal, as I should say, and that's how many place values in my answer the decimal will go. Well, here I have 1, 2, 3. So in my answer, I would have 1, 2, 3. My decimal would go right there. And as some kind of a check and balance here, you want to look at your front end estimation that we talked about. So 6 right here, front end estimation, times 1 is 6. So I know my answer is going to be close to 6. And here I have 8 and 946 thousandths, and that's close to 6. Because if I put my decimal here, it would be 8,000. That's not going to work. If I put my decimal here, that's going to be 894. That certainly is going to work, as I'm erasing my numbers here. So let me put my 4 back there and my 6 back here. And as you can see, the only one that makes sense is where the 8 is right there. Okay, let's look at another problem here that we talked about in class. 9 hundredths times 13 hundredths. A little trickier. Okay, in this case, my decimals are lined up only because my digits are lined up there, and that's the way the decimals just happen to be. 3 times 9 is 27. Carry my 2. 3 times 0 is 0. My 2 is there. 1 times 9 is 9. Remember, since I'm starting from the 1, I go right under the 1 and put my place value 0 there. 1 times 0 is 0. I have 7, 9, 10, 11. Carry my 1, 1. I have 117. Now I count my place values to the right of the decimal. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know in my answer I should have 4. 1, 2, 3. Now I have a little dilemma. What do I do? Well, we talked about this in class. We talked about the camel humps, adding the 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boom. My decimal goes right there. So my answer is decimal 0.117 or 117 10,000ths. Okay, so remember the key is count the place values after the decimal to the right, and then that's how many place values you have to have in your answer after the decimal on the right. All right. So this this video covers both FA's NBT 7C and NBT 7A. Little out of the ordinary, not actually showing the FAs there, but we're going over the processes that we talked about. Hopefully this will help you for the common assessment. Thanks.